verses. Now, it says here, verse 5, now Rebekah was listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. When Esau left for the open country to hunt game and bring it back, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, look, I overheard your father say to your brother Esau, verse 7, bring me some game and prepare me some tasty food to eat, so that I may give you my blessing in the presence of the Lord before I die. Verse 8, Rebekah said to her son, now my son, listen carefully and do what I tell you. Go out to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats, so I can prepare some tasty food for your father just the way he likes it. Verse 10, then take it to your father to eat, so that he may give you his blessing before he dies. Alright, verses 5 to verse 7. Rebekah, we could really see here, he was a nosy woman. Because he had issue within his family, within her family. Now let's go to Genesis chapter 25 verse 23. It says here, the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb. Remember this, we talked about this last week. And 2 peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. When Rebekah was conspiring with Jacob to reverse what was going on, she forgotten what God had revealed to her when these twins was inside her womb. Why? Because Rebekah was desperate. Now, let's look on Genesis 26, verse 34 to 35. The question is, why Rebekah was desperate? Now, this is the answer. When Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and also Bashemath, daughter of Elon the Hittite. They were a source of grief to Isaac and Rebekah. I'm going to repeat verse 35. They were a source of grief to Isaac and Rebekah. And this is on Genesis of chapter 26. We could now really see why Rebekah was nosy. Because number 1, she was desperate. She was having a problem with her in-law. So if you have a problem with your in-law, you're not alone. There's nothing new under the sun. Long time ago, it's already here. We could really see that there was a problem with the in-law. So now Rebekah tried to convince his son Jacob to do to reverse or to play trickery with Jacob, so Jacob could get the blessings. But she forgotten what God had revealed to her. What does it say to us? She was acting, yes, in desperation. That's true. But it is also she was full of doubt. Because now, she was relying to what she saw and to what she heard. She saw that there was already a covenant, trying to have a covenant between Isaac and Esau. And she also heard that Isaac was ready to bless Esau. So now, she's saying, no. But this is what God had revealed to me. Now, I have to do it on my own. See, this is the reason why we have to submit whatever our plan to God. She didn't submit it to God. She didn't listen to God. She listened to herself. Now, my point here is that when Rebekah and Isaac, what is grief here on verse 35? The grief here, it means like we usually use grief when someone has been has been lost or died in our lives, right? But here, when we look grief in verse 35 or 26, it means bitter. So the in-laws, Isaac and Rebecca were in bitter. They were bitter. Why? Because they have their son Esau married a ungodly woman. Now, what does the Bible say? Well, is there something wrong? The question is there something wrong with marrying somebody who is outside God's will? Sure, we have free will to choose who is going to be our spouse. I can relate on this very much. But because I stood on my faith, my husband cannot touch my faith. I say, do not touch my faith. I believe in God, and that's the precepts I'm going to follow. Now, the question here, we have to analyze Esau. Why Esau? He knew who is God. He knew what God can do. But how come the two women that he married was in grief? Was not pleasing in the eyes of his parents. Why? Because they were ungodly Hittites. When we read, I'm encouraging everybody to read Genesis chapter 15 and Genesis chapter 17. You see, Esau was truly a man, a strong and brave man, but he was stubborn and he was quiet. You see, he didn't win his household to God. You heard what I'm trying to say? He didn't told to his wives who God is. He didn't testify who God is. He quiet. When we do that as Christians, and we are surrounded with people around us, even especially with our spouse, guess what? It's either one of us will bow down to what they believe, or us dragging them to the truth. Which one is it? If our personality is like Esau, a weak person, he is strong outside, but weak in person, he didn't speak up about his faith, guess what? What will happen? They will drag your family, you yourself, and the generation to come to the ungodly things. You understand what I'm trying to say? The family of Isaac and Rebecca was not pleased. It is not because of who they are, but because of their ways. Many people, they do not know what are God's ways. They don't understand how the universe is created. They don't understand why you're giving your tithes and offering. They don't understand why you pray. They don't understand why you praise. They don't give importance who God is. That's why they become a burden in the family, especially if you are practicing the truth. You're getting what I'm trying to say?
Amen.
Now, is it too late for us? For those who are people who are married just like me, we married unbelievers. No, it's not. Let's go in Philippians 4 verse 6. Philippians 4 verse 6. Philippians 4 verse 6. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. So for those people who are asking yourself, is there any hope for me if I married somebody who is unbeliever? Yes, we have to pray without ceasing. If we have to kneel down, pray, so be it.
Amen.
Why? Because it is our job to win their soul before Christ.
Amen.
Number 2, we have to be the salt and the light. Now let's go to Matthew chapter 5. Matthew chapter 5 verse 13 to 14. It says here, you are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled by men. Verse 14, you are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. You see, Esau did the opposite. But if we become the salt and the light, if we follow Christ, we become the salt and the light. It simply means that we're showing to our spouse that we are different from the people outside. If they are liking something, what the world is offering, we don't have taste on that. What we have taste is everything that is pleasing before God. Now, the question is, if free will is given why we have to submit our plans to God. In the verses that we saw, we have to submit our plans to God because we are not God of our own self. Yes. He alone knows our beginning and He alone knows our end. So whether we are looking for a spouse or whether we are now married with somebody who is unbeliever, we have to speak up. We have to testify because we desire that everybody should be saved, and we should have a desire that our generation to come should be serving the Lord, our living God. And that's our Bible study for today.
Amen. Thank you, Lord.